I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour, a weekly webinar for photographers to connect, inspire, and create. My guest speakers share their photographic expertise. They infuse creativity and inspiration to help us all improve our photography skills. You'll find the schedule for upcoming presentations on my website at lindanickell.com. Tonight's guest is Kathryn Conrad. Before joining the Williamson Museum as their curator, Kathryn worked in film production and post-production. She has a BFA in film from UT Arlington and holds a BA in history from Texas A&M, and is currently pursuing a graduate degree in arts management and creative industries, where she will be attending the University of Glasgow beginning this fall. Kathryn has worked with me on 2 photography exhibits for Texas Through Her Lens, with a third one that's planned for August. And she has been on the planning committee of the Texas Photography Festival for the last 4 years. In tonight's presentation, From the Mind to the Wall, Exhibiting Your Photography, Kathryn will share her expertise and help you create a compelling display of your photographs that will give you a leg up in competing for gallery space. Whether you're looking to sell prints or just wanting to share your passion with the public, understanding the process and principles of exhibit design will give you new tools to assess your work and elevate your photography to the next level. Kathryn, welcome to the Happiness Hour.
Thank you so much, Linda. I am so excited to be here and very glad that you twisted my arm to come speak with you guys tonight. I love photography. You know, she mentioned that I've worked in film video for a long time, but photography was really my first love. I got my first Nikon camera, my first camera when I was 12 years old as a Christmas present, and was immediately hooked and took a million terrible photographs. And, you know, what is sort of however many years later, you know, am enjoying my photography still as a hobby, and enjoying applying the learning that I've had over the last over 20 years to helping other people showcase their art as well. And I love the community aspect of this. And so this is going to be a big part of what we're talking about tonight, is not just promotion, because I think a lot of people hear the word, you know, promoting your art or getting out there, and they freeze up a little bit, especially if you enjoy being behind the lens rather than in front of people. But really, what we're talking about tonight is about showing your photography in its best light. We're approaching it from kind of composition things, and we're talking a little bit about the infrastructure of exhibiting with galleries or restaurants, things like that, so that you have a little bit of knowledge of how to approach that. And hopefully it's a little bit less scary if you haven't done that before. I know that some of you have done that before, and so I hope y'all take something from this as well. And if y'all have any insights to share as well, feel free to put them in the chat or raise a hand, whatever you need to do, because this is a community as well, right? The Happiness Hour is that kind of supportive community that's about connecting with each other. So we'll get started. I will start sharing my screen.
You guys, if you can see me on the screen, this smile is not gonna leave my face. I am so excited. First of all, I didn't think she would say no to me, but you know, you never really know. And when she said yes, I was like, okay, she is trapped. I'm not letting her go. So this is something that I've been wanting to do. And some backstory, just a second. The first exhibit that I put together for the Williamson Museum, Kathryn had all the photos, and like for 10 minutes, I just watched her move things around, and I was mesmerized. And I thought, there is an art form to this, and I don't understand it. And I think as a photographer that even if I'm putting photos on my own wall, watching her do that and understanding the process just makes this so easy and more beautiful. So I really am tickled that I got you to say yes to do this. And I think anybody that's going to watch this that has been hanging up their own photos will walk away with, I need to switch things around. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, share your screen.
Okay. Okay, so from the mind to the wall. So we're going to talk through the process of you've taken your photograph, you saw it, and it is you've taken the photograph, you've backed it up twice on two separate locations, so you don't lose it because one died. That's my plug to back things up, guys. Always twice. Have a backup for your backup. Now what? You have a beautiful image. You've edited it. You have it the way you want it, and we don't know what to do next. So that's what we're talking about tonight. And I also plugged. I don't currently have a website of my photography work up or film work because I transitioned into the museum world, and so stopped paying for a website and haven't gotten it back up yet. But you can just kind of see this is some of my hobbyist photography. It's mainly kind of pictures of my kids and travels and things these days. But top left, we have my husband holding our firstborn, and that's my firstborn again below in the blue bonnets. And then we have my secondborn running at us at the bottom left, as well as some trips from Colorado, West Texas, and Central Texas. The bottom center landscape photos are just taken on an iPhone. And so I always encourage you to use the tools you have with you. And as a parent of young ones, I don't always have my expensive camera with me for safety purposes, but you can take it. And in fact, the photo of my husband and holding our son is also taken on a phone. So now that I think about it, so use what you got. And we'll come back to this kind of as an example for some things, do's and don'ts in arranging things later. So the first thing you do after you have taken your photograph is you're going to figure out how you're displaying it. And this talks about printing and framing specifically, but it doesn't have to be that. You might come out of this talk saying, you know what, I don't want to exhibit in a gallery. I only want to exhibit online. I only want to curate my Instagram feed, or this is not something I want to do, and that's fine. Basically, you can take all the advice that I give you in this and tell me to go to Texas with it, go wherever with it. So, because a lot of this is going to be subjective as well. So printing and framing, you're going to approach that the same way that you approach composing your original image, which is what am I trying to express and what supports that visually. So what does your subject ask for? Is it asking you for intimacy? Is this something that is precious and delicate and that you really want people to have to walk up to the photograph to see it? Then maybe don't print it on a grand scale. Maybe you're printing it to show that it's something worth coming close to see. And are you printing it as a set, or is it a grand landscape that you want? I've got this picture of the elk and the mountains behind it here. I was going for a feeling of how massive the landscape is in that photograph. So I don't think I would print it small if I printed it, because I want them to feel, I want the elk, which we know to be a large animal, to feel dwarfed by the landscape around it. So are we asking for grandeur with a photographic print? You can also say, like, am I printing this photograph as a set? You'll see an example later where someone has cut up a photograph into a triptych. So are we going for repetition in a series? Are we going for contrast between things? Is this a photojournalistic thing where we're telling a story of a time or a place? And all that's going to go into, just the size that you're printing it, and then your print materials as well. When you're printing, I want you to keep exhibiting in mind if that is your goal. So canvas, you're not going to have glare issues, but you are going to lose detail, and that's going to sit further out from the wall. Metal, it's going to be vibrant colors, really bright, really captivating, a lot of detail, and it's going to catch every bit of glare everywhere. So, same thing with matte versus glossy paper. If you're putting, glass in front of it, all of those considerations should be intentional, no matter what your choice is. I will say that consistency in framing is your friend. If you have separate series of photographs that you're taking, then it might make sense to do different kinds of framing for those things. But if you say you have a narrow scope of focus, like you're doing macro photography of flowers or you're a birder and doing that kind of thing, and your photos are fairly consistent in their subject, consider developing a signature kind of framing so that you're consistent. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but I'll show you some examples in a second. You also don't want to distract from the photograph. Or we'll just go ahead and come here. Let's say here's two different examples of pairing a gold or yellowish frame with a black and white image. On the right-hand side, I see what they were going for. You have this beautiful kind of Italianate architecture. And so they've put a very ornate old world kind of frame around it. But for me, and again, guys, this is subjective, so you can say, no, this is perfect, leave it alone. But for me, this distracts from the photograph. I'm not looking at the photograph here. They are trying to balance the empty space of the sky with the ornate pattern on the frame. But for me, I'm not looking at what the subject of the photograph is. I'm busy trying to figure out what's going on the edges. Versus the right-hand side, again, you have that golden or that yellow contrast with the black and white images, but all of the detail is limited to the photograph itself. And I want to step forward and see what's going on in those photographs. And it's not always going to be ornate is bad and simple is good. That's a blanket statement. These are just the examples that we chose. But you want to pay attention to what your eye goes to with the frame and be aware of how that's going to, how that's going to contrast. I think if the picture on the right were even simpler, maybe it didn't have the trees, maybe it's a desert landscape, then that contrast of ornate and simplicity might work well. And maybe we're drawing attention to a sunset where it's just those changes in color in the frame and there's not a lot of detail work from trees or mountains or water, those kind of things. But that's going to be on an image by image basis. We also said consistency in framing is your friend. Here's another example. So you have two sets of photographs here. The one on the right is obviously a home setup. This is a stock photo. And it's kind of a hodgepodge. You can tell that these were put up at different times. They all do have a similar white matting on it, which is nice. But you have a black frame that really sticks out up at the top, and you have a gold frame next to it, and then you have gray frames that are kind of opposite from each other and wooden frames at the bottom, and it doesn't feel like it was put together as a set. And it's something that when that has come up in shows for me, it's another thing I have to think about trying to balance when I'm putting together a show. And that's not necessarily what you want. You want your decisions to be easy. You don't want to have to try and figure out problems because not only is the subject different, but now the frames are different, and now the sizing is different, and the orientation sticks out. The picture on the left has consistency in framings. They're not all exactly the same frame. You can see that some of them have a beveled edge, some of them are smooth. So they were framed at different times as well, because it's expensive to frame. I don't expect y'all to go frame a whole show all at once. If you can, great, but I know that that's a big ask. But she's kept it to black frames of about the same thickness, the white matting of about the same thickness. It looks cohesive as a show. The one thing that gets me is that we have one portrait orientation photograph, and it's a set of photographs, but we have one portrait orientation frame in the show, and the rest are landscape. And so for me, that was something I had to work around to make that feel like it fit in. So I'm just looking at, you can lay out all your works on the floor. That's what I do every time, and look at it as a set and say, is the framing, are the materials working for me? Does it feel like a set? Is it what I want to express? So again, oops, on the wrong thing. These are both examples where you can see that they've printed them with display in mind. So you can come to, even if it's just for your home, you know, this picture on the left where it has a very large matting on it. I don't love it by itself, but it's clearly intentional to balance with the other images. And I'm sorry, guys, secret, not all of my examples in this are of photography, but they will all apply to your photography. So Um, and my cat is begging to be let out, so I'll have to go do that in a second. But um, you can see here that they've made this white space balance with this darker image on the bottom. The pictures are all about the same size. They've got consistency in framing. And then you can do weird stuff too. I love this image on the right side where they've put these together as a set. And not only are they a set because they're printed the same size and they have different aspect ratios, but they're all similarly done. It's a black and white series. It's telling a story. You have a bunch of different images that are giving you a sense, and they're quite literally tied together as a set. So that would present its own hanging challenge, but it's presented in an unusual and a captivating way that again reinforces what the content in the photograph is. So you can always go back to what you were trying to express in that, and you can get funky with it. So again, what are you saying with your work? And now we're going to start getting into how you talk to galleries, how you're approaching exhibiting. And it all comes back to what are you saying with your work? What are you saying just in general as your brand, if you will? You don't have to think about it as a brand, but when you think about what drives your photography, whether it's in every photograph you take or what you're interested in at the moment, and I'm doing a study on this particular kind of bird, or I'm going to West Texas, and so I'm going to do a Big Bend series of photographs, that kind of thing. What are you trying to express with it? And I know you're thinking about that during the photographing. Start thinking about it after the photograph is taken as well, because that will feed into what you need to exhibit. And this is the first step with exhibiting. This is a picture of the Downtown Art Gallery in Round Rock. Some of y'all have been there and some of y'all have not. But they showcase a lot of local artists, and you want to go find a space that is doing what you want to do. They like what you do already. They're showcasing artists at about the same professional or amateur level as you. They showcase the kind of subjects that you are interested in. So if you're if you're interested in documenting, current protests and political subjects and having a strong commentary that goes along with your work, find a venue that wants that. A restaurant probably doesn't want to display that, but a city gallery, depending on what they're doing, might. A private gallery that is interested in provoking conversations and current events would love that. And so go to where you know they're going to like you. Do your research for what galleries have showed in the past, and go in and feel the space. See if it feels like a place that fits with what you're doing. Have your pitch ready. Already know what kind of show you want to do next. And even if it's I want to just show my work generally. Well, what is your work generally? You have to be able to tell them, I do bird photography, but I do it this particular way. This is what moves me about bird photography, because you want to stand out from there. There's a lot of bird photographers, and some of them stand out because they can back up what they love about the birds, what they connect to, or they're shooting it in a particular way. There is a particular photographer that we exhibited at the Williamson Museum in Georgetown that her bird photography is portrait-like, by which I mean she is photographing these birds, almost as busts. It's a single subject in the middle of the photograph. There is repetition in how she photographs. And so when you see them together as a set, you don't go, oh, bird photographs. You come in and you say, oh, look at this bird. Oh, look at this bird. So read how, know yourself and know what moves you in the human element of that, and have that ready as a pitch. Because if you can show what you care about so passionately, other people will respond to that. And the right gallery to exhibit in will be interested in what you're interested in. And the wrong gallery will be interested in something else. So connect with the person. Come in, talk about your passions, ask them about what they've been doing. If they, go on their website and find what their mission statement is, just be a human being about it. Come in interested in what they're doing and how you fit into that. And it's exhibiting is a collaborative process. And with that, be personal with them, but Also, don't take no personally, because on the gallery end of things, it might be that they absolutely love what you're doing and they have filled all of their photography spots for the year. And they, they're looking at a lot of considerations. They're looking at a remodel that they're going to have to do that they can't fit this in. They're looking at, okay, we have a similar show already on the books. What's the minimum length of time we need before we can do that kind of show again? So it's not unheard of for galleries to go 5 years after they meet someone to call them back and say, hey, it's time. So it's a matter of the right place at the right time. Um, and so don't take no personally. I heard a wonderful thing yesterday that said, well, when I started, I wanted to put myself out there more. And so what I did was gave myself a goal of I want 20 rejections this year. And they used rejections as a goal rather than as a sign that they weren't doing something right. It's a goal that they were promoting themselves, they were getting themselves out there. It's just part of it. So that person gave themselves the goal of 20 rejections this year, and they'd only gotten two, but they'd also had two talks and four online showings and had widened their network considerably. So don't take no personally, because most of the time it is just like a math equation in the gallery owner or the curator's head, where if they want you, they will call you back. And if they don't, it's just because it doesn't fit in whatever puzzle they're working on. And it has nothing to do with the quality of your work necessarily. So try again. And when it comes to installation, a gallery has said yes, and it's time to start doing your research for what installation looks like. A lot of places will already have that written out as a PDF or a site that you can go through for their specs. But if they don't, you want to make sure you ask questions about what is their hanging method? How is a tab okay for your work, or does it need to be strung on a wire? What are they using? What are the drop off and pick up dates for it? What are their sale protocols if they are selling work, not just displaying it? Do they handle those transactions and take a percentage? Are you responsible for those transactions? I know a lot of places like like restaurants and coffee shops that display art, that is all up to you. And if that's the case, you need to have on your labels how people get in contact with you. You need to have a way for them to pay you, that kind of thing. So go through the full sale protocol, start to finish, of who's responsible for what and how that happens. Promoting the show, just usually hanging the show is a collaborative effort, and promoting the show is also a collaborative effort. So the gallery is offering the space, they have their network, but it's your show, so promote it as well. Invite your friends, send images, have images prepared so that we can do that kind of promotion. And every place is different, so make sure you understand what their methods are, have it in writing, have your agreement set for dates and everything. But do that as soon as they say yes, essentially, is be going through that and preparing for the show. And scout the space. If you haven't been there in person before, ideally you would have been in there in person, but if you haven't, if you're, applied somewhere that's far away from where you live, try to scout the space or get them to do a video walkthrough with you, get measurements of how much space you really have. Experiment with the layouts at home, either do, you can draw it out on paper, you can do a Photoshop file where you're plugging in the photos of your, plugging in the photos and seeing how they go together. You can just lay them out on your floor if they're already printed again. So experiment with what you're liking and work with the gallery staff, because they're going to know their space the best. Everybody's different. They've got the ways that they like to do things. And so take their lead in terms of what they think will work, what they think are their, this is their area that really attracts people to, kind of just based on the flow of the space. This is kind of the corner that's harder to get people into. Talk with them about that stuff if you have the time to. And you want to foster that relationship, because again, this is a personal relationship. They've invited you to the gallery because they're responding to your art, and they want people to connect with it. They want it to be a successful show. So you're working together to achieve that. And you can see in the example photos up here, the one on the right is from the Museum of Modern Art in New York. They have these kind of large black and white photos with white frames. So again, it doesn't have to be a black frame. Um, they have white frames there, and it's a very different look from the International Museum of Art in LA, which has these like just very dramatic black walls and shiny floors and everything else. But again, this time the white frames look very different, and so they managed to separate those darker black and white images from the wall, so that works well. Versus on the white walls, the white frames kind of blend in, so where all you're seeing is the photograph and you're coming. So similar mounting and framing methods, different looks, different approaches. Um, there's a woodblock print that was at the Blanton. It's actually coming down this week, called The Floating World, that you can see here. And they've gone for like a natural wood framing of their woodblock prints on these beautiful blue and green walls. And you can see on the left-hand side, it's all kind of in one block. It's almost like this brutalist block of photographs. They're all the same together. In the middle, you have this kind of curving wall, and the photographs kind of reflect that. They're not in a single block snaking around. They have some space, some different arrangements, and that's even more pronounced on the right-hand side, where you have kind of this widening and narrowing flow of the prints as you go. And you can see, while we're still on installation, I want to talk about the handy dandy toolkit real quick. Ideally, the gallery will have these, but it never hurts to have your own kit just kind of ready to go. And a lot of you probably do, I bet. But these include things like painter's tape to help, hold things in place. A level, you can also mark things out with your painter's tape if you have more time to kind of experiment. Have a level with you to make sure nothing's tilted. Have some pliers, measuring tape, wire cutter and extra wire if you're hanging things. I had a photographer come in once, and we had talked extensively about how we were going to hang everything, and here's our hanging system and all that. And he had forgotten to wire all of the photographs when he got there. So we sat down and we took 2 hours to wire everything. But so it helps to have your toolkit with you in case, we all have those moments. A cleaner for fingerprints or smudges once it's up. That's kind of the last polish pass that I like to do before. And then there's your computer toolkit, which is digital copies of works for the show to use as promotional images. And it doesn't have to be a high-res image of your photograph. Like it's harder and harder online to prevent work from being stolen. So maybe it's a portion of a photograph, or maybe it's all of the maybe it's after it's hung up, you take a picture and you've got all of them on the wall, so you get the sense of the show, but not a high-res image that someone can take and claim as their own work or plug into AI. Maybe it's maybe you just go abstract with it, and you've gone so close into a photograph that you just have kind of a line or values happening to give a sense of the show. So it doesn't have to be a high res, but it could just be a low res one that they could put up. But have some promotional images ready to go. Have your headshot ready to go. And then about the artist statement, it could be a full bio. It could just be what you're interested at the moment. That usually it's good to have a short version and a long version for different social media points. So have a general one written that you can have, here's the little bit and here's the more in detail version of your life or your work. And then have a specific write-up for each show. Because that is, again, what people are they're coming to see, not just the quality of the photography and the beauty of it, but the meaning behind it. That's what people react to, is knowing why this shack in this field, why this street artist performing, what is happening, what fascinates you about, the stamen of a flower and all its polleny glory. So, take your time to reflect on what's moving you for this show, because again, and I can't emphasize this enough, if it moves you, it will move someone else. So you want to back that up with your writing. Because then you can create beautiful promotional images like this, where we pulled, some low res images from 3 of the artists that we're showcasing, and Linda sent me those along with her logo, and we could create, something to attract people to the show. And it fits my green and gold theme for this presentation. So, so we're talking about kind of promotion, and we talked about kind of the flow and the framing of these things. Again, reinforcing what you want to say and fitting into the space as considerations. So we're going to go through some of those principles of composition now. I'll take a deep breath because I've been talking fast.
You're good.
So the principles of composition for an exhibit are the same as the principles of composition for a photograph at the bare essentials. You're going to look at what the physical space requires in terms of the number of photographs you need, the size the photographs and the frames need to be, take into account frame size. What can you use to complement the space, right? Like with the black walls and the white frames, or the wooden frames over here, which complemented the fact that it was woodblock prints. And then how are you grouping them within the space? This could be done anyway. This is the subjective part of this, and this is what Linda watches me do when I lay everything out on the floor. I am looking at things by their subject to see if there is a story to be told by grouping these things together. I am looking at things by their visual weight. What are the darker, heavier images? Usually those would go on the bottom. I say usually. Sometimes something else overrules that. But you're looking at the visual weight, and does it feel balanced or does it feel top heavy, like it's about to fall over on you? Is there a color theme emerging? Where, oh, this color photograph actually has a lot of purple undertones, and this one has a lot of yellow undertones, and they look really vibrant next to each other. And I hadn't even noticed those as separate photographs. But when you're shifting things around, you're going to see that some things make pop when they're put next to each other. And so you're looking for that. And that's why it's good to experiment at home too. So you kind of already know, oh, I love these 2 photographs together and what they say and how they make me feel. You generally don't want to put all of your cactus photographs together and all of your landscape photographs together and all of your airport photographs together unless they're significantly different, because then people might come up and go, okay, cactuses, okay, an airplane, okay, airplanes, okay, birds. You don't want people to do that. So mix up your subjects when you can, unless they're telling a story that way. And then the last thing with kind of composing your space, you can kind of see here, they have these photographs. This is from the Photography Museum in Ontario. I see a question that I missed earlier of how assertive should I be if they don't get back to me within a couple of weeks?
Yeah,
I wouldn't worry about it. You can send a follow-up email, but you don't, again, it might just be that it's not the right time, or it might be that they're not that interested. And again, that's not personal necessarily, or it might just be that they're not the person to receive what you're putting out there. So follow-ups are good because sometimes people just forget. But usually I would give them, a couple of weeks and then say a follow-up, and this is how to reach me, thank you for meeting with me. This is how to reach me. I look forward to hearing from you in the future. And I would just leave it at that, because you can come back maybe in a year if you still really like that gallery and feel like it would be a good connection. Maybe it's a different person coming in at that point, or maybe the gallery is doing something different with their space. But I wouldn't sweat it over much. If they're not getting back to you, then that's kind of your answer. At least for now. And I know I followed up on someone I wanted to exhibit 2 years in a row, but I didn't contact him more than once a year because he said he was busy. I respected that. He wasn't ready. And so I just dropped in and said, hey, how are you doing this year? I kept it human. It wasn't just about, will you exhibit what I wanted. I wanted to check in with him and see how his project that he mentioned was going, because he was busy with that project. So showing interest in his project, hey, how did this go? Go to their other shows, really see if it is a place you want to be. If they haven't gotten back to you, still fill up the gallery. So, not in a about exhibiting way, but in supporting what they do way. If that is somewhere you want to exhibit, go be a part of their community, and then they will know you, and that helps in the long term too. So I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but it doesn't mean you have to just like cut no contact and never reach out to them again. Just feel them out as people, and it's about people and connecting with people. So good question though. Thank you for asking it. Okay, so back to principles of composition. So we have this kind of bottom justification here and this flow happening on the top. And you can kind of, and that kind of helps stabilize everything, right? If it's top justified and kind of hanging down, you have this kind of more loose, it feels like it's hanging thing, which might be what you're going for. But here they have these tables underneath. And so they're working upwards from the tables, right? People are going to look here and go down, or look down and go up. So you're paying attention to how people are using the space. And so a lot of times bottom justified helps keep it unified, especially if you have different orientations and kind of spreading things out. You have this kind of wave flow, which is pleasant, which again, you see here. This is that woodblock show again, but you can see on the blue walls how they're going wider and thinner and wider and thinner, because they've got a lot of different aspect ratios they're working with. They've got a lot of different groupings that they're giving space for. But even between the walls, you can see we've got thinner and wider and thinner. And they've chosen colors that complement what are in the wood blocks. It's not an exact match, but it's the exhibit was titled The Floating World. So they've gone for these kind of it was a Japanese woodblock print, so they've gone for these kind of jade greens and a nice calming blue that go with it, that don't distract from it, but give it, in my opinion, I know they're cool colors, but it's a more warming, welcoming feel than a white wall would be in this situation, and it leans into the natural world in a way that we have wood frames for woodblock prints. We have greens and blues for kind of this floating world of nature and beauty and these things. So there's thought behind the space already, and so see how your photographs fit into that space. And if it's a small photograph, again, people are going to lean into the photograph like that girl in the middle, to get closer and see the detail, or if it's a really grand one, you can see here, there's this giant photograph by itself on the wall, right? And the photograph itself, he has a spotlight on him. So they've treated this photograph like there is a spotlight, and it's alone on the wall, and it's large. These other wall examples, I want to point out what they're doing here, because these are two that I like. On the left, you have a tent that is at a craft show or a city fair, that kind of thing. Portable display space. But they've hung up their photographs. They've got a consistent framing. It's not exactly the same. The mats are a little bit different from the color work to the black and white, but they've got a consistent look, and they're leading your eye. So on the far right, you have this kind of diagonal happening with these, I guess they're dandelions maybe. Hard to tell from here, but that creates a diagonal that brings you back into the wall. The bottom left one also has this diagonal dark space in it that brings you back into the gallery. On the other end, you have kind of these upright trees and cacti that stop you from kind of leaning off into the distance. You can lead a person's eye back into your gallery, or you can take them out of the gallery and on to the next thing, which may not be what you want. And again, on this right-hand wall with this yellow accent diagonal here, they've arranged their photographs. You can see this top left point is much higher than the top right point. And that's a diagonal that contrasts with the painted diagonal. And then here in the center, you have this kind of keyhole peeking out through the hands. And so that's a very static image, right? It's centered. And then you have large photographs up at the top. This is one of those examples where like these are heavier visually than the small works, but they've inverted the rule here for a very good reason. Normally you would put your big heavy ones at the bottom and your smaller ones on top to kind of keep it balanced, right? That's the general rule. But here, you're not going to see these, that they're so high up on the wall, you're not going to see the smaller ones if they're higher up. So what they've done is they've invited you to step close to these small series at your eye level where you can come in. And then these larger kind of icons up here, you can see from a distance. And you can engage with all of it that way. So both of these are examples I really like, from just a very simple kind of self-setup in a tent to a really large gallery space. And then these are two examples where I feel like they're not making the most of their photography or their artwork in these cases. We have another tent setup, and his photographs look very nice, but he doesn't have enough of them up in the space. And it might be different if he had a table set up underneath it, but he doesn't, for one. And even if he did, those three photographs and the smaller ones he has on the sides are not enough for me to get a sense of his work, and are not enough to draw me in. He's got plenty of prints, which is great, and he's got some jewelry that he's selling too, but I don't get a sense of his work this way. They're three very different subjects. The ones on the side also look very different from what I can tell. And so I don't have a sense of what's driving him with his photography, what he cares about, what I should care about, likewise. And it's just not enough work. So picking a number that fits is also fine. On the left, we have a very different problem. The spotlights are missing a lot of the darker pieces. They've put their brightest pieces in the spotlight and their darkest pieces in the darker spots. And it's difficult with a photograph of a space and everything, but I feel like we're not invited to really appreciate those darker pieces. And it makes it feel less of a piece with these bright greens and blues and pinks that we have popping up. There's a lot of art all put together, and they are all similar size. So this is one of those situations where it's either you're working against different framings and slightly different aspect ratios, and that's all fine. This hanging system, these sets of threes works okay, but they're not looking at how the pieces talk to each other. And so that's what I would encourage y'all to look at if you're hanging your own work. And again, I talk about those diagonals leading your eye. This bird is looking out. So in photography, if you're doing a portrait and someone's sitting in 3/4 profile, you want them looking into the frame, right? Not out of the frame. Generally, if you're doing it on purpose differently, then you're doing it on purpose differently. And so again, all of this is subjective, but in general rules, you want someone looking into the frame. The bird is not looking into, if we consider the entire wall our frame, the bird is leading us out of the frame. It's leading us away from the other artwork towards whatever is next on the wall or in the hallway. So we're not using these strong bird diagonals to help us. We're not using the lights to balance out the differences and things. And I get a little lost in what this show is about. And maybe it's a showcase of just different artists in the area, and that's fun. I like those shows. I like group shows. But I think their composition of the exhibit could be done better. And this is another example of a setup I like. Again, in a tent, and this is a very fancy tent. But you can see here, they've taken one photograph, but they've framed it as a triptych. So they're thinking about this as being an art piece on someone's wall. And I can come in and I can look at this and say clearly, okay, they do these landscapes. And she even kind of has a color palette going. And so she's got a framing style where it's the canvas borderless look. And so it's very clean. So I know what she's going for. I know what her brand is. Thank you to Powder Hill Photography. And this is another example of one that I liked. I walk up to this one. She doesn't have a ton of pieces. She may have about the same number of pieces as that first tent did, but they're larger. They fill the space. She's accounted, so she's taken the measurements and known. And I can come up in an instant and I know what her brand is. She's doing this beautiful, like aquatic photography. There's a lot of turquoises in there. Um, she's got some different framing styles, but she's grouped them. So we have our clear frames or our canvases in the middle. We've got our gray frames on the sides. So again, it feels like a cohesive show. And so I'm much more invested in what she is saying with her photography than that first example where he didn't have very much up. So it's up. You're happy with how it looks. You've taken your photographs as soon as installation is done, so you can see how the show looks. You can promote the show. You have a record of the work you've been doing to exhibit. And hopefully you're getting exhibit photos from the gallery as well, if they take them. Keep records so that when you go to the next gallery or the next restaurant, you can say, yeah, I've exhibited here and look how beautiful it turned out. It helps your next pitch. And it just helps you feel good about when you're looking back and saying, yeah, I really did that. Again, promote your own shows because the gallery will do what they can, but it's a collaborative effort. So invite your people who want to see you succeed, have them be your hype people, so to speak. Have them tell their friends, have them share on Instagram, have them, tell their grandma, hey, let's go on a weekend outing to come to this artist reception. Bring in your support network and have them spread the word too. And then, finally, like I mentioned with, the gallery hasn't gotten back to me, you can still go support the gallery if they're doing work that you like, and you're going to meet people and you're going to support other artists who will then support you in turn. You're building that network, you're building that community, and you're going to learn more for your own work as well. You're going to see what other people are doing. You're going to get inspired, because if all you're doing is the grind of self-promotion, people get tired of hearing that really fast. They want to know what you're interested in, and they want to feel that you're interested in what they're doing as well. So go make friends, because then you can go on, photo jaunts together, go drive a backwoods thing or go to a fun spot where something's happening to take photographs together. Support your shows, share their shows, all of that. The more you can get involved, it's only good returns on that, both from a professional sense and from a personal sense. So I have a couple more resources for you guys. If you're local, I have these links to Round Rock Arts, the Georgetown Arts Center. This Kathryn Freshly art has a great blog article about how to set up your tent if you're setting your photography up in a craft fair or festival scenario. So she's got some really good advice on there. And then I'm going to drop some PDFs in the comments. Just a much more in-depth gallery guide from Lens Culture. It's photography specific, and it's like 136 pages. So it's got every question you could ever ask in there as well. Some local things like the Kirby Lane Gallery program shows you what they're looking for, what their restrictions are. That one and the Georgetown Library Art Guidelines can just give you a good sense for what to expect from different places. And again, every place is different, but you can at least kind of see what patterns emerge or what is involved in terms of the investment of getting a show ready together a little bit more. Or you can apply to stuff if you want. I think Georgetown's closed for this year, but you can see when their dates are and start planning for the future. And if you have any more questions, I know I've been talking a mile a minute.
I have questions.
Oh, yes, I see.
Yeah, let me go ahead and do you
Yes.
want to go ahead and give your email, and then I'll get you to take your screen down and I'll ask these questions.
Okay, yes. Okay. So if you want to reach out to me, my personal email is up. It's kathrynsc@gmail.com. That's the best way to reach me. I'm sorry, I'm not super on the social media as a professional at this point. If that changes, I'll always reach out to Linda. But But you can absolutely reach out to me this way. I'm going to be in Glasgow for a little while, but I can connect you with local people that I've worked with in the past. I'm at the Williamson Museum as well. I think um, there's always stuff going on. Also want to plug the Texas Photography Festival if you haven't been to it yet and you're able to come to Georgetown, Texas. It's a great place to meet other photographers. Come to Linda Nickell's Happiness Hour in person. Um, and there's just a lot of good things that come from that photography festival as well. So I'm going to plug all the local stuff here. I'm going to answer Susan's question real quick. When you visit a gallery, what do you take with you to discuss your work? Are there good resources to help with pricing? That's going to vary based on, I'm assuming if you're bringing stuff in to show that you have an appointment to do that, because that's time that the gallery is giving you. So if you have an appointment and you're going in, you might just ask what they want to see. Usually, if you have a portfolio with examples of your work, you could show generally if you want, or you could say, "Hey, I have this idea for a specific show, so this is kind of what I'm thinking. I have, I want to show, the before and after of this place that I have loved all my life, got hit by a hurricane, and I've got photos from before the hurricane and photos after, whatever your subject matter is. So it might be that they want you to send them something digitally that they can look at on their own time too. It's really going to depend on the gallery. If you're going in as a cold call, I would just introduce yourself and not necessarily bring stuff. If you have a business card, you could give that with your website on it if you have a website or an Instagram. But if you're cold calling, it's just an introduction. I wouldn't come in expecting a longer interview at that point. Just because, if you're working and someone comes in, do you have 45 minutes or whatever. So have an appointment, ask them what they want to see. It's going to be different each time. That's a really good question. Another good question, are there good resources to help with pricing? Pricing for frames?
No,
or
for selling your prints
for selling your artwork. Okay, gotcha. That is another spot where going and seeing what the galleries that you're interested in are selling. It's another benefit from being involved on a longer term basis and going to other shows. Because it also depends on your goals. If your goal is just to start building a name for yourself, I've seen people lower their pricing based on that, but I don't necessarily recommend that. I would kind of see what other artists are listing for, and then as you meet other photographers, talk to them about which pieces are selling, what they're selling for. I wouldn't try to be the lowest bid buyer. I think that is a way to undervalue yourself really fast. It's very tempting as an emerging artist to do that, but I think you should look in your area and talk to the gallery. That's a wonderful way that they're a resource for, to say like, hey, what's been selling? What have the people that come into the gallery been buying, and at what price point? Because I have seen a $500 photograph sell on the first day of a show, and I have seen $35 photographs, prints sell fast. Some places are going to let you have a bin full of prints to sell for smaller, unframed for cheaper. But it varies on the place. And again, it's just a matter of doing your research in person to go and see what is the market where you are. I'm sorry, I know that's not a very satisfying answer. But yeah, I would start with people. People are always your best resource. So talking to the people where you want to exhibit.
Okay. That sounds great. Let me get you to take down your screen.
Okay, sorry.
So I can properly thank you. If you have any questions, now's the time to put it in and type fast, because I think, to be honest, I think we captured all the questions that were in there. Kathryn, this is a great presentation. This is something that helps Linda. What do I get out of it? And I got a lot of great tips, and just personally, it's just been a joy to know you and work with you and get the benefit of this knowledge firsthand and have you hang my prints um, and just, I'm so grateful for the support that you have given me to like pay it forward to the groups that I've been working with because it's all a win-win for artists. And that's that invaluable. It's invaluable. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for taking on some questions. And I so appreciate you. I'm going to miss you and I'm going to wish you the best. And I'm going to hold you to that, coming back and working on your special projects. And you know that if I can help, I will.
Absolutely. And likewise, thank you for having me on. I really do love the community aspect of exhibiting so much. It's the thing I love about the happiness hour. It is I appreciate you all coming to listen and to support Linda and keep telling your friends about the happiness hour because I love this project. And like you said, it's a win-win for everybody.
So with that, gosh, all right. Next week, Mike Cavarock will be here to share his presentation, Capturing the Perfect Wildlife Shot. Until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.